Hey, mental wealth. Wizetics OS mental wealth. We here with Freestyle Friday. This is where we go unscripted, all the way live with it. This is what's going on this Friday. It's a new year in the Gregorian calendar, 2026. So, what we got? 2026. How we gonna get to it? This is how we gonna get to it. So, what do they know that you don't know? And does it matter? What do they know that you don't know? And why does it matter? That's the question I have. Yo, what do they know that you don't know? And why does it matter? Who is the they? Who is the they that I'm talking about? Let me lay this foundation down for you. Okay, stay with me. Because by the end of this, you're going to figure out, not even figure out, you're going to learn what they know that you don't know. And you're going to learn why does it matter. You're going to learn why it's so hard to scale as an entrepreneur. And you're going to learn some things that's going to show you how to endure that struggle, how to overcome the barriers. So let's go. Wizetics OS, mental wealth, Freestyle Friday. And so I'm gonna be coming from here with it from Wizetics. I'm gonna be coming from Wizetics a lot with what I got going on, right? So I'm gonna start with this part right here, 2026. What we got going on 2026. This is the appendix to Wizetics. This appendix right here. What we got right here. Okay. The Wizetic Blueprint, the Power. A unified economic philosophy of Black excellence and global empowerment. That's what we're talking about. That's a old one. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Wizetics is not just a system. It's a worldview built upon the 7 pillars of prosperity: mindset mapping, strategic structuring, life operations, biz genesis, market mastery, monetization and scaling, and legacy leadership. It is a cultural codex of empowerment. While deeply rooted in the Black and Brown experience, its application transcends race, geography, and politics. This appendix connects the core philosophies of some of the greatest Black economic minds: Dr. Claude Anderson, Dr. Boyce Watkins, Amos Wilson, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, into a singular living blueprint for power, resilience, and legacy. Why do we need that? Why do we need Wizetics? We need Wizetics because for this reason here. What do you know about the CRA? Are you familiar with the CRA Act, Community Reinvestment Act? Okay, so basically, this is something that was started in 1977 due to the fact that within the economic infrastructure of the United States, there were major barriers that blocked out Black economic wealth development. So the access to capital was intentionally blocked off. And so this might not sound realistic to some people, or it might sound like, wow, okay, but that doesn't just fit inside of a vacuum. So we talking about 1977. What was happening before 1977? So we go back and go back. So that's why you got to trace things back to a certain root of the cause or where did it come from, so you can be able to evaluate where things are today. And what we are looking at from that standpoint is basically racial discrimination, bias, prejudice. That's what we're talking about. And these things are nothing new. And sometimes, people don't like to talk about it for whatever reason. So I'm just making sure I got some things straight over here. Okay. Checking some things as we go along, because I want to make sure some more people come in, because we live right here. So I'm just checking to see who else is coming in onto the live, because this information, we want people to be able to get this information, because it's some very, very important information. It's some stuff that I'm going to provide for you today, that as we go into 2026 is going to give you what you need to make it through 2026 and beyond, with establishing yourself in a position for generational wealth building. And if you already have generational wealth established, how do you keep it? How do you maintain what you already have sustained? These are some things that, coming from the perspective of someone who have had an experience from the academic level and real world experiences in life and business. So me, I've had the academic growth and learning with psychology with a focus in consumer behavior, and then an MBA, Master's of Business Administration. So these are things that I went through in the academic world to study, learn, and apply in connection with my life experiences itself, being an entrepreneur. So with that being said, let's get back into this on this Freestyle Friday. Unscripted, straight, raw, uncut. CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, 1977. Here we go. Think about the landscape at that time, the environment in 1977. What's going on? So we had already had the assassination of Allah the Father, the founder of the 5% Nation. We've already had the assassination of Martin Luther King. We've already had the assassination of Malcolm X. We've already had the assassination of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark. We've already had the assassination of the United States President, Kennedy. All of these things have already taken place in the 70s. In the 60s. So we're talking about, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, the roaring 60s. These are, this time right here is a lot of violence going on in the United States. High level racial tension going on in the United States. What does this have to do with entrepreneurship? You might ask that question like, okay, you're saying, okay, this stuff is taking place, but what does this have to do with entrepreneurship? Stay with me. I'm going to explain these things. It might don't sound, real clear to you right now, but as you continue to listen with me on this Freestyle Friday, you're going to see the real connection between high level capital in the banks and financial institutions and in government, federal government, and the local levels of state and city, town connections, and the barriers that exist along these different levels. Because as an entrepreneur, you got to think, what are you doing? You're starting a company, you're starting a business, but there are already other businesses and companies that exist already. These things are already there, right? So these businesses are already there, right? Okay. So now what's happening? What's happening is you're entering into a market that already exists with business, with companies, with people. And some of these businesses have been there for years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 100 years, right? So that's what we got. We got that going on, right? You entered into a market. You entered into a space where it's already business going on. Now you want to enter that. That's a major ambition. Someone to say, I want to start a company. I want to start a business. Okay, for the most part, to start that business, it doesn't really take a lot. You fill paperwork out. You pay a fee. You know, you got a corporation, you articles of your articles of corporation, if you're an LLC, articles of organization, and you pay the state fee. You got your EIN number. You're a legal business entity. Some specific types of businesses, you got to go get licenses and things like that. Yet the fundamentals of starting a company is articles of organization, articles of incorporation. That's if you're doing it that way. But if you're a sole proprietor, you just do business in your name, which I wouldn't advise you to do because you want to have limited liability. However, that's just business. That's entrepreneurship. So now you providing a service or a product that solves a problem for people who are willing to pay you for solving their problem. So now, but we are talking about multiple people inside of the market of economics, business ownership, or entrepreneurship who are providing products and services to people as well. And now you're entering into a space where you are striving to obtain some of the share of that market. Meaning that, okay, you got people who already shop at Food Lion and you want to start a grocery store. Okay, now you're competing with Food Lion or Walmart, who have groceries, or Harris Teeter. So this is what I'm saying. When you enter into these markets, a lot of times it's people that's already there and have already been there. So let's look at this like armies. Let's say life is business, business is war. So let's say each business is an army or a military itself. And we're talking about now the impact and power and resources and the might that this army have or this military have. And the whole mission is to get people to pay you for your products and services. And they have massive reach when you're talking about a Food Lion, Harris Teeter, Walmart. And now you want to come into that equation and provide groceries for people. So now it's like, okay, you starting off on what level? Whatever amount of resources that you had to put into structuring your business, your grocery store. Is it a little food market inside your neighborhood in the community where you're providing access to food, groceries? And then you have a Walmart down the street or a Harris Teeter down the street or Food Line down the street within the same neighborhood. So we're talking about competition. And what we are talking about is barriers. Because do you think they actually want to see someone else coming in that's competing for the same dollars that they're competing for? Meaning that you're living inside of a community. Your business is inside of a community where it's already other grocery stores, the major grocery stores, Food Lion, Harris Teeter, Walmart. You see, these people already there. You coming inside of that market. So who was there first? Let's say Food Lion was there first. And now Harris Teeter want to say, well, let us put our store in this same community down the street from the Food Lion. So you're competing against each other. And in order to compete against each other, you got to have the right type of resources to pour into the business. Listen to what I said. You got to have the resources to pour into the business. Right? So I'm just checking up here. I'm doing some double checking up here again to make sure I'm all the way live over here. because it doesn't look like it's operating live. Because I want this information to get out. I don't want to just be saying this and the people don't get it. So that's why I'm backing up and making sure I got this all the way it need to be, so everybody can get to hear this, to tune in to this Freestyle Friday, because I'm gonna get back to it. Because I started over and I don't know if it went back in. Hold on. Okay, we good. Looks like we good. So, again, grocery stores, Food Lion, Walmart, Harris Teeter, already there in the community. Now, you got your grocery store. You want to put it inside the community. Who was there first? Food Lion might have been there first. Then Harris Teeter pop up. They competing against each other for the same customers. Why? Okay, Food Lion sells milk. Harris Teeter sells milk. Where you going to buy your milk from? You're going to buy your milk from Harris Teeter, or you're going to buy your milk from Food Lion? The price is kind of like within the same ranges, because why? It's different brands of milk in both grocery stores. So now they have suppliers. Harris Teeter got their suppliers. Food Lion got their suppliers. They supply them with their milk. Harris Teeter gets supplied with their milk. What's the competitive edge that they have from one from the other? Could be Food Lion is closer to these people who live in this part of the community. Harris Teeter is closer to those that live on that side of the community, coming from different directions. That's one thing. Now it's okay, the vibe that they might get when they go into Harris Teeter, the vibe that they get when they go into Food Lion. What is the customer experience? What is the experience when you shopping in there? How does the environment make you feel? Or what type of deals are being provided in this way or that way? That's kind of like basically how it goes, right? Now you are a new business, a new grocery store coming on the scene. You don't have the big name like a Food Lion. Food Lion is known around the whole United States, basically. Harris Teeter, they're known. Okay, how will you enter into this market that already have major movers and shakers there? Big companies already there. How do you enter into that market? See, this is why I say life is business and business is war, because you're going to have a competitive edge to be able to enter into that market where people have already been at. There's people already inside that market. I'm not going to stay a long time on this Freestyle Friday, because let me get to what I want to get to. What do they know that you don't know? And why should you know it? Does it matter? What do they know that you don't know? And why does it matter? Does it matter if you don't know what they know? Let's get more into this. CRA, Community Reinvestment Act. So the CRA was passed in 1977, like I said. It put regulatory provisions in place. It put certain things in place where banks had a standard that they had to live up to, which is they had to make sure that they were allowing access to credit, to the banking products, right, for low and moderate income individuals, right? So basically, it is saying that if you live in a community where it's underserved, basically, there's not a lot of wealth building inside of this community for you, right? And you decide to say, I want to own a home, or I want to start a business, or because let's take it back. If you want to start a home, you got to have good credit. If you don't already have the money, so you're going to get a mortgage from the bank. So the CRA set in place a way where banks would be graded. They would get graded on how well they live up to the standards of making the access available to those that are in low, moderate income communities. That's what the CRA is about. That's exactly what the CRA is about. So with that being the case, you want to start a business, you want to own your home, then the standard is set for your credit score being at this level. Now you go into the bank and then you meet these qualifications, but it's a key to that. Knowledge. You would have to know the process of how credit works in order for you to be able to position yourself to qualify. So, but if you coming from generational poverty, that means the information and knowledge about credit is not within your household for you to be aware of that it actually exists. And if you are aware that it exists, how does it actually operate? How do I utilize credit? How do I establish credit? How do I utilize credit? And how do I position myself to be able to get access to more capital, more resources from the bank to meet the demands that I have for home ownership and entrepreneurship? If I want to start my own business, if I want to enter into real estate, these are the fundamental things you're going to have to know about, which is you're going to have to know credit. So people say, well, I don't use credit. Okay. Just because you don't use credit, that's okay. But here's the thing. If you want to go buy a car, now you don't have that full cash for it, the car going to get financed, right? And now to get it financed, you're going to have credit. And here's the thing. If you don't have credit on a level that meets the standard that they've set, then you're going to have to pay more to enter into the equation. See, you're going to have to pay more to enter into that business relationship with the bank or that financial institution. So let's say your credit score is like 400 or something, or 500 something. Okay, they're going to say, okay, you want to buy this car with your credit score low, your payments are going to be very high. Your payments are going to be, let's say you buy a car, $50,000 car, right? So $50,000 car, credit 500. It's going to be basically hard for them to find somebody that's going to finance that car. And if they do find someone that's going to finance that car, it's usually a credit union. And so then that credit union, the interest rate is going to be so high. So what they're going to tell you is your payments for that car is going to be like $700 to $800, $900 a month for this $50,000 car. But if your credit is up to par and you got like a 720, 800, then your car payment would be like $300 a month. And you get it with no money down. But let's say your credit is not up there. So now what's going to happen is you're going to have to put a lot of money down as a down payment. And you're still going to have a high monthly payment for that car. All based off of what? Your credit. So even though the CRA is put in place to say, okay, you have to give access to low and moderate income families, the key part is if the knowledge is not provided, if the education is not provided, then the people that's in these communities will not know that these are the things that you have to do. These are the things that you have to learn first. And these are the things you have to do to qualify yourself to achieve these goals, which is what? The basic fundamental goals of living in society in the United States, which is having a car, having a home, career, or entrepreneurship. Inside your profession or entrepreneurship. So these are the basics. And it might not seem like it's basic when you're coming from a situation of underserved. And when you say underserved, let's go like this, right? Take it back to the days of slavery. In the days of slavery, education was forbidden for the slave. It was forbidden for the slave to learn how to read. That's how that went. And I know a lot of times people say, well, why you got to bring all this up, and why you got to make it about race, and why you got to make it about black and white? I'm not making it about that. I'm just identifying a historical account of things that took place and making it relevant to what's taking place right now today to provide the proper information so that you will be able to maneuver through these things and be successful. So you can gain some success for you and your family to be able to establish generational wealth. This is what I am doing. And when this is done, a lot of times people might not be able to digest the information based off of how they've been miseducated because they might not see it being relevant. This is why I start off saying, what do they know that you don't know? And when I say they, let's say it like this. Who is the they? The people who own homes. You have people who own multiple homes. The people who own cars. There are people who own multiple cars. The people who own businesses. There are people who own multiple businesses. You get what I'm saying? What do they know that you don't know? The people that own multiple homes, the people that own multiple cars, the people that own multiple businesses. What do they know that you don't know? Now let's get a little bit deeper. Because to own a car, let's say a 2026 car right now, 2026, you can basically get a car from 1985, 1990, 2000 car. You can pay some cash for that, $5,000, $1,200, and you can purchase that car free and clear, straight cash, right? But I'm talking about you owning a newer model car, 2022, 2023, all the way to 2026. In order to pay for that cash, you're talking about at least $35,000. Average car, $35,000, like that, right? So you got $35,000 to go straight and buy that car off the lot. Most people don't. So what you're going to have to do is put down a down payment and finance the car. And to finance the car, you're going to have credit on a level that meet the standard that they are looking for, which basically is a 680 and above. And that sets a baseline, basically. And if you don't know that, then you won't be able to achieve that goal. No matter if you see other people driving cars, you see other people doing, and you want to have that, but you won't be able to achieve that because you don't know that these are the things that you have to have, meaning that you have to have your credit established a certain way to enter everything that I said above. Now, here we go. You can own a business without credit. You can just start your business, or you can invest in someone else's business. You can just go buy stock into another company. You can buy stock in Food Line. You can buy stock in Harris Teeter. You can buy stock in Walmart, and you will be part owner. So what do they know that you don't know? They know that. They know they don't have to start the business themselves. They know they can just invest in someone else's business and become partial owner and reap the benefits of that business with passive income, meaning they don't have to put any labor in themselves to do the work that keeps that business going, but because they invested in the stock of that business, they become partial owner and can reap partial reward or profit of that business based off them having stock ownership. That's what they know that you don't know. They know that if I buy this, if I go to this store and I apply for credit at this store, that I could begin to establish my credit score. If my rent is being reported to the credit bureaus, I'm paying rent over a certain period of time, then that allows my score to grow, because all the credit score is saying, this is simply what it all means. I possess the ability I possess the active capacity to pay this back. Because all credit is you are receiving money, or you're receiving access to be able to purchase and pay later. That's all credit really means. Credit means I can purchase this product or utilize, I can pay for this service through credit. I don't pay anything right now. The credit says you're going to pay this later. You want to pay this later. You qualify. You are responsible enough, because that's another way that it means. It's basically saying you are responsible for this amount of money. You're responsible for this amount of money. You have the way that you can come and basically get this product, get this service without paying any cash right now. You will pay later. That's what credit means. That's the basics of it. Right? That's the basics of it. So now they have bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. Those are the fundamental major credit evaluation bureaus. And then you have like LexisNexis. You have some other people, other agencies or bureaus or whatever that is collecting the data and putting it together to create a score. So they got a score. They evaluating you through a scoring system. So they created the scoring system. But who created the scoring system? See, this is the part where I strive to get people to see. I don't tell you what to think. Wizetics is not about telling you what to think. Wizetics is about showing you how to think. Because let's go back to what I just read here. I'm going to go back to this appendix again. I'm not going to be long. Maybe 10 more minutes on here. And I'm out of here. Okay. Again, Wizetics. Wizetics is not just a system. It's a worldview built upon 7 pillars of prosperity: mindset mapping, strategic structuring, life operations, biz genesis, market mastery, monetization and scaling, and legacy leadership. It is a cultural codex of empowerment. While deeply rooted in the Black and brown experience, its application transcends race, geography, and politics. This appendix connects the core philosophies of some of the greatest Black economic minds: Dr. Claude Anderson, Dr. Boyce Watkins, Amos Wilson, Dr. Jawanzu Kunjufu, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, into a singular living blueprint for power, resilience, and legacy. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about providing the information that allows you to enjoy the basic experience of living life: love, peace, and happiness, and the accumulation of assets that accommodates the living experience in relationship to other people, places, and things around you. That's the fundamentals of that. And so now there's barriers in place, though. There are barriers in place. And a lot of times people don't want to talk about the barriers, because when you talk about the barriers, people say, oh, you're disrupting certain things, and certain people don't want to have these conversations because it makes certain people feel uneasy. And the only reason why it makes certain people feel uneasy because something is being done that should not be done, which is you are manipulating situations and circumstances that allow for a small group of people to obtain access to assets and live a certain luxury life at the expense of the ignorance of some people who carry that burden in these underserved communities. This is what Wizetics is here for, to bridge the gap, to be able to show how we are all connected and how we have to communicate and interact to be able to ensure that everyone has access. Everybody might not want to achieve the same exact goals in life. Everybody might not want to drive the same type of car. Everybody might not want to eat the same type of food, which we know everybody don't. But the thing is to give everyone access to be able to clearly have the option. And the way that you provide this access in a way that's fundamentally assuring, meaning that you're not taking away from no one. You're not. So it's basically equality. The way that you establish real equality, right, is through education. That's all it takes. Provide the fundamental nourishment of the mind, which is education, right? That allow a person to be able to make informed decisions. And now once they have this part, the choices that you make connect to certain consequences, but you will already have understood from the beginning part that these are the options that you have. Because when you put someone in an environment, or when you establish an environment that is not providing the necessary resources for someone to be nourished in their environment, you bring about certain psychological defects and you bring about certain crime. This is where certain aspects of crime is coming from. The crime is coming from the lack of, and it just don't start with the lack of resources on a material level. It's beginning with the lack of proper education. Proper education always correct error. Proper education always correct error. So if you have someone that's intentionally miseducating people and they have certain things in place that are considered to be standards, but you intentionally hide the information that is necessary for someone to maneuver through the environment where these standards are set. Meaning that, okay, if I know the right things that I need to know, and it's connected to the right things that I need to do to be successful in this environment, then I'm going to be successful. Right? This right here is like mathematical chain reaction. But if I don't have access to the proper education, my natural response to the environment is going to be desperation. It's going to be fueled with survival of the fittest mentality, where it's like scarcity, right? Scarceware thinking. It creates impulsive decision. It creates desperate behavior. It creates addictive behaviors in regards to self-medication, striving to relieve yourself of the dis-ease of the experience that you are having. So these things, not dealing with no conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory. There's not no conspiracy theory. I'm just giving you the facts of life, because here we go. If it's a conspiracy theory, right? Why does the CRA Act exist? Why do you have the 1983 due process? Like, these things came about. First of all, why do you have a 13th Amendment? Why was it necessary for a 13th Amendment to say slavery needs to be abolished? Because these are certain facts of life, of experiences that took place in this country, and certain things still take place in this country that's an outgrowth from those things that took place back then, which some people can't see the connection. And when you go to talk about it, when you go to express it, a lot of times it creates dis-ease with people, because certain people don't want to take responsibilities. Certain people don't want to make amends. Certain people don't want to deal with equality. Some people want to live. Some people ego is fueled by putting themselves up here and having someone up under them. They feed off of that through their ego. They genuinely can't see an eye-to-eye relationship going on of mutual connecting based off of, the proper order of growth and development of the mind being nourished from a child, from childhood development, growing up to adulthood. Certain people benefit more off of people not knowing. So it's like this right here. Sometimes you can go into a business equation with someone They gonna keep certain information to themselves. They don't want you to know because they want to capitalize off your ignorance of the situation. But if you genuinely knew what they know, now that equation changes from them having the upper hand on you to capitalize off you in a way that keeps you subordinate and drained and stressed because you feel something, but you can't explain why you feel what you feel. You can't explain why the situation is what it is. You know something is not right. Your own intuition tells you something is not right, but because you haven't been nourished with the right knowledge, you don't connect the dots to formulate a clear picture of understanding of what's really going on, which will allow you to solve the problem. Because first of all, you can't even realize what's the cause of the problem. Sometimes we look at it like, we know it's these people over here and these people are doing this, but do you really know what's really going on though? Because it's coming from things like this. You made your choice, you got to deal with it. That's the choices you made, so deal with the consequences of your choices. Let's check this out though, because I got a degree in psychology. I know how the mind works, right? See, if you are miseducated as a child, because you're still going to make decisions, because being a human being is someone who makes decisions. You know what I'm saying? You're not an animal that just moved up instinct. But check this part out. If you're not properly nourished mentally, you will operate like an animal. You will function like an animal. And what do I mean? You will function like an animal. An animal is dictated by their environment, meaning that a fish cannot exist outside of water. The fish is dictated by the environment that it is produced in. See how simple that is? The fish is dictated by their environment. So that's animal. If it get taken out that environment, it will die. Taken out of water, fish die if it don't get back in the water in time. So this is what I'm talking about. Young people are being miseducated. Specific groups of young people, they're being miseducated. And then in some cases, not educated. So it's two things taking place: miseducation and no education. So in some places, it's just you just illiterate, you just naive and just don't know. Then in some cases, it's you think you know, but you really don't know. You've been miseducated on what you think you know. Meaning that, okay, you hear about this is how I'm supposed to go to school, get a job, go about my life and my career or whatever. That becomes the goal, right? But you started out from a position that your mother wasn't properly educated. Your father wasn't properly educated. So they couldn't give you the education that you need. And then their parents were properly educated. And so therefore it's a cycle going on. Here and there, an anomaly pops up and someone becomes educated. But now they might not be able to carry the burden of the whole family though. Because you got brothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, and they're looking for this one person to carry the burden for everybody. And that's usually what happens when you see sports and entertainers. They get, they amass a certain amount of riches through their skill sets of sports and entertainment. And now they are expected to carry the whole family. That's everybody, because they found a way to make it based off their skill sets, and they learned some stuff, that allowed them to be positioned to do these things. But the rest of the family is not educated, and they might not necessarily possess certain skill sets that allow them to meet the demands of having management of these type of riches. So now, because that's one problem of not having enough money and you stress, but then it's another problem when you got money and you still stress, because why? You still got relationships, you still interacting with people. It's still things that you have to do. And if you don't have proper education for that level, it's like, wow, I'm still stressed. I had one point where I didn't have enough money. I'm stressed. That's survival mode. Now I got a lot of money. Now my decisions come to be more critical, because it's like, how do I manage this money and keep this money, sustain this money, and provide for my family in a way that it keeps everything going, because now you got to micromanage certain things. Now you decision density, you froze in your decision. Like, what decision do I make? So this is why Wizetics exists. Wizetics exists to provide the proper education, to give people the right knowledge base to be able to make informed decisions, to be able to be successful in their life experience. That's what it's all about. Going back to CRA. So what does that mean? That means that the banks have what you call a responsibility. The banks do. The banks, that's the certain major banks that's connected within the CRA Act, the Community Reinvestment Act, they have an obligation to provide financial education. I'm going to say that again. The banks have an obligation, according to the CRA, right? Community Reinvestment Act. According to CRA, the banks have an obligation to provide financial education in low income, moderate income communities. And in order to do that, they have to have people in these communities that are the bridge between them and the people in that community. And that's where Wizetics come in at. And that's where the problem exists. It's a problem that exists in this area right here, where the banks have an obligation to provide financial education, which prepares people, meaning that you are becoming bankable ready. They're preparing you to be able to have a relationship with the bank. So they're giving you information on how do you deal with establishing credit. The bank have an obligation to provide that education, but the bank is on this high level. So they don't really know who is who inside the community that they supposed to be providing this education for. So now you have people that's positioned inside the low income and moderate income community, which is a lot of times the Black community, because that's how this all came about, through the redlining that was going on in these early days of the 60s and the 70s. It was redlining. So lines were being drawn that X out certain Black people to be qualifying for bank loans, to be qualifying for bank credit. That's why the CRA exists. And it's a fine miss that most miss. Most people don't even know this information. But then it's some people who learned this information that are Black. So you have Black people who formulate nonprofits. They formulate these institutions where they're supposed to be providing the financial education for the people in these underserved communities. They're supposed to be providing this education that will prepare the people in this community to get access to the bank. And this has been going on since 1977. So why do we still have Black communities impoverished the way that they are if this exists? What do they know that you don't, is what I'm saying. What do they know that you don't know? It's Black people in position in the Black community that act as liaison, bridge between the bank and the community. They receive the money from the bank under the pretense of providing education for this community to prepare them for a relationship with the bank. Can you name me some Black institutions that do you have any household? The same way you know Bank of America, the same way you know US Bank, the same way you know Wells Fargo. Can you name me an organization, an institution, an entity that is providing financial education inside the underserved community that's known to the community the same way that they know of Wells Fargo, Bank of America, US Bank? Name Name them. You know about U.S. Bank, right? You know, you might not know about U.S. Bank sometimes because it's a regional bank, but you know about Bank of America. You know about Bank of America, right? But do you know who Bank of America is connected to in a relationship that is providing the CRA education? Because why? The banks get graded on that. They get graded on how well they are providing the education, providing workforce development, providing access to capital. They get graded on that. The banks get graded on how well that they are providing those things for low income, moderate income community, aka Black and brown communities, underserved communities. This is why Wizetics exists. If these things were being done in a way that is really impactful based off of what they were supposed to be set up for, or what, not what they're supposed to be set up for, but what it was initially set up for, there would be no need for Wizetics. It only exists. Wizetics only exists because there's a void. There's a disconnect with the top and the bottom. It's a disconnect between those at the top and those at the bottom. It's a major disconnect. And the disconnect exists where the people who are affected by this in the worst way have no idea what's going on. They have no idea. They just live. I interact with young people in the community all the time. Their parents be around, the interaction in the housing development facilities with the, you know, the rec centers. All these things is going on, right? The murder rate over here, this level growing up, you know, the crime exists this way. And then, you know, the cops got to come and they doing what they doing. And, you know, the city is the county and all these officials, and they hear the cries of, oh, you know, we tired of, you know, the murder rate, or we're tired of the robbery. We're tired. Okay. But what's the root of all of that? So you got to get to the root. The root is miseducation. No education. No education and miseducation is the root of all that. And if you want to invest in the change, then this is what Wizetics is about. To invest in the genuine change to be able to solve this problem. And some people benefit by keeping the problem. That's where it gets critical, because some people benefit off the problem. The same way this gets kind of disrupt dialogue, the same way the pharmaceutical companies benefit from what? You getting sick. If people are not getting sick, what's the demand for the medicine? So you have to get sick in order for the medicine to be necessary for you. Because when you get sick and you don't know what's going on, you go to the doctor. The doctor necessarily, under the system that it exists, don't cure, they medicate. So they're going to provide you with medicine that is attached to an economic connection. You know, it's connected to an economic foundation. Some people benefit from the problem. They don't benefit from the solution for real. The solution is masked. It's masked. It's disguised as a solution. And this is just being real, because we keep talking about we having these problems in life, right? And people are having these burdens in life, but do you really want to solve these problems for real that people have? People having these problems. It's people having these problems. You know, people dying of cancer, but do they have to really be dying of cancer? It's some people dying of heart attacks, cardiovascular disease, but do they really have to be dying from these things? And some people getting sick. Do they have to really be getting sick from these things? Because you didn't start out like that. You didn't. You. Some people can be born with these things, but you know, most people are not born with cancer already. Most people are not born with heart disease already. These things get developed over time, and even if they are born with it, that means that it came from the genes of their parents. And there come a time where they didn't have it within their bloodline and their gene pool. these things came in at a certain point in time, and it's coming from the decisions that you are making because you don't know what they know. You don't know what they know. And I'm here to tell you what they know, because you might think what they know doesn't matter to you until you find out what they know and how it affects you in the worst way. What they know that you don't know is affecting you in the worst way. And you are being held accountable for what you don't know, because as an adult, as a person, as a human being that has the free will to make decisions, you are making these decisions. But you are being shaped by your environment. The environment has been structured this way. And this is why Wizetics OS life-based infrastructure is so important, because I'm giving you the actual solution, not medication. I'm not here to be a life coach, a business coach. I'm an advisor. I'm a systems advisor. I'm a community development architect, building communities through the people that's in the communities by providing the necessary education, the proper education, so that you can make informed decisions from underprivileged, from underserved to unstoppable, right? From it's legacy over luck. That's what I'm coming with. And I've been here longer than I went to be here. And this is Freestyle Friday. So it's coming straight from the dome, unscripted, the raw version, unfiltered. Some people may like it, some people may not like it. Some institutions may say, why is she talking this way? We want to have a relationship with you. But, you expressing these things that make it hard for us to have a relationship with you based off public relations. Right. But here's the thing. What's right is what's right, what's wrong, and what's wrong. We deal with what you call evidence-based, right? Look at the evidence. What is the evidence based off of? Look at the circumstances that we have in these communities, right? So we're talking about humanitarian relationships right here. We're talking about human being, people, young children, families that are experiencing things that they don't have to experience. And this is why the CRA exists, to make sure that everyone has access to the resources that exist in their community. Not talking about somebody else's community. We're talking about the community that they live in, that there's a Food Lion down the street over there, and they might not have a car to get to that Food Lion, right? So they dealing with the little grocery store, market store that's right there. And a lot of times that might not be there. So that what you call food desert. And so we talk about all these things, and I come from these communities. So that's why I have a deep connection to solving this problem. And this is solving the problem in a way where, yes, I receive compensation for my work that I do, because this is how life and business go. And when we provide everyone with the opportunity to experience this, then we circulate the money amongst our community, right? So if this person want to drive a Rolls Royce, they can drive a Rolls Royce. If this person just want to drive a Honda, they can drive a Honda. But if the person who already got a Honda, when they say, I want a Rolls Royce, then the opportunity is there for them to achieve that goal by doing what? Applying their skill sets with the proper knowledge of how the credit system works, and putting in the necessary work that they need to put into to earn more money by providing products and resources, or getting more skilled up in what they do to earn more money within their profession. And it allows you to access these things. These things are accessible when you have the right information, and be realistic about what you seek to get access to. Not biting off more than what you can chew. So now we're talking about understanding how to budget. We're talking about the economy of motion. We're talking about situational awareness. We're talking about a lot of things that's all wrapped up in what I call the 7 pillars of Wizetics. So that's the show for the day. That's the session for the day. Wizetics, mental wealth, Freestyle Friday. I kept you a little bit longer than what I was going to keep you. However, for those that came, we here. I'm here for you. Those at the top, I'm here for them as well. Those at the bottom, I'm here for you as well. I'm the bridge between the top and the bottom. Systems developer, system advisor. Because you say it's a system over here, the system. So you have to produce a system that interact with the system to produce a genuine solution for both sides.